Take the roll, please.
Mr. Diffenderfer.
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston.
Yes.
Mr. Enders.
Yes.
Mrs. Gray.
Here.
Mr. Miller.
Present.
Mrs. Mungold. Mr. Nobinger.
Here.
Mr. Peterson.
Here.
Mr. Minnick.
Here. We'll start with
Eric, I was having trouble unmuting. I'm here. Mrs. Bumble.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay.
start
Sorry.
with a moment of silence. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I think we have a student council presentation.
So we're here representing the student council and student body of Millersburg High School. As a continuation of the work with Relationships First, the high school student council is taking some time each month to recognize the great work that our students are doing, both in and out of the classroom. These are some things that we would like to share with you since the beginning of the school year. Bob Divler, a graduate and former teacher of the district, presented to Mrs. Klinger civics and government classes on September 13th about the history of Millersburg Area School District. Mrs. Klinger took her civics and government classes on a trip through the history of Millersburg, including the TVP Colonnade, the Millersburg Museum, the Veterans Square Park, the ferry boat, the Millersburg Canal Basin, the first Brubaker Mansion, and the Miller House. Student council feels that back to school night should be, that it would be more beneficial if it was closer to the start of the school year.
Student Council has begun preparing the annual homecoming events, including assemblies, spirit days, the annual Mr. Millersburg competition, selection of homecoming corps, and the homecoming dance. The Student Council has begun fundraising for the Millersburg Mini-Thon, holding a car wash at Bowling's Propane. The sophomore, junior, and senior classes have selected their class officers. Ava Shoup has been selected sophomore class president, Olivia Dyer has been selected junior class president, and Reagan Hale has been selected senior class president. The Conservation Club has begun, including 53 members of the junior and senior classes this year. The club's first trip will be their boater safety training in cooperation with Lake Tobias and the PA Boat and Fishing Commissions, led by Officer Mark Sweppenheiser. Thank you.
Thank you. Very good. Is there any other public comment? Board presentation, we have recognition of retirees.
Yes. So it's my privilege tonight. Do want to recognize two individuals. First we'll go with Barb Herb. Barb has 33 years this past school year when she, as far as turned in her retirement. So we have her here tonight just to recognize Barb and present her with just a card and a thank you, and just even for myself, from the district, think of the 33 years and all those lives you touched. And so this is one of the chapters we all hope to in public education to be able to make it to. And so we're just privileged and honored to have you to serve your 33 years and what all you did for our students and for our district. And with that, we just have a card for you. I did ask Mr. Leiter, since he had spent a couple years in your building, if he had any stories maybe or anything or thoughts maybe that he would want to share.
Well, I just wanted to share the same thing. I got to be Barb's principal for 11 years, and I worked with her as a teacher for 8 years, and I don't believe we ever had an unkind word shared between the two of us. Those years were great years. You were a great service to the students. The only thing I can remember that was possibly a blemish on your storied career at Anchorville was you did walk across that wet wax floor the one time.
Yeah.
I think those marks have long since buffed out. So thank you, Barb, for your time. Barb worked under 6 principals. I think you started with Mr. Zerby, didn't you, at Anchorville?
Mr. Zerby was first. 6 superintendents, 6 principals.
So, thank you, Barb.
Yep, have a card for you, maybe we'll get a picture. Jump in here too, Mr. Leiter.
I can't hear.
So maybe
Thank you very
Maybe on the other side. whichever.
On the other side.
You heard my.
Maybe you can put some bunny eyes on. That's fine.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you very
Next, we have Rosa Figueroa. Rosa was an instructional aide here for us for 12 years, I think, when we were doing the math. Rosa, we just want to thank you for all of the years of service working one-on-one with students. I know over my past year here, from time to time, you get to sit down, you get to have good conversations with the staff and with the employees, and I think on more than one occasion, I had the opportunity to sit in my office and have some good, down-to-earth conversations with Rosa, just basically helping me as a new superintendent coming in, and just sharing a little bit of her life and maybe some of the things that she does outside of here. And so, on behalf of the students, especially the ones that need us the most, that you would have worked with, just want to say thank you for your 12 years of service, and we also have a card for you if you'd like. Come on. Yep. Picture, yep. Very good, take care. Wish you both much joy and success in your career.
Thank you.
Take care. Yep, thank you.
Yeah, thank you both. Next, we have nutrition group.
Thank you.
Yep.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you. Thank you. How's it going?
Good.
Oh, sorry.
Great. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jen Ziegler, and I'm a regional manager for the nutrition group, and this is Lori Lehman, who's the director of food and nutrition. We are very pleased to be here tonight and very excited for the upcoming 23-24 school year. So our main goal this year is actually focusing on getting back to basics. We all know that within the past few years, we've actually been forced to follow COVID regulations, been actually stuck with rising costs within the economy, inflation, and actually finding those employees who actually care about our students. So as a manager within the school district, this has definitely been one of the hardest things for me to deal with, basically because we know that these are some of the only meals that our students are receiving. So I personally feel that many of our programs have been forgotten about, basically not because we have forgotten about them, just because we were trying to survive and get our students fed. So now we're finally back to where we need to be, focusing on fulfilling our promises to our clients in all areas, including, first and foremost, the cost controls. We actually, as a management company, work with our purchasing directors to actually bring in the best, not only the best quality food, the best prices, but also different items that our students enjoy. Participation, in Millersburg right now, our participation is increasing, and that is basically due to the point too that we are not forced anymore to use refined menus. We actually do have the capability of getting all of our products in this year. And we actually are menuing all of the items that our students actually enjoy. Moving on to the promotion of the program. As a nutrition group, we do a lot to actually try to promote our program. One thing we are doing this week, starting tomorrow and Thursday, we actually have our Nutrition for Life, which is in Lankerville. And this actually gives our youngest students the opportunity to come in and, nutrition group actually covers the cost of the lunches, already since breakfasts are free. But we're in hopes that this is going to bring that younger generation into our food service programs. Nutrition education, we don't only want our lunch to be involved with just the children coming in to eat lunch. We also want to bring education into our cafeterias every day. So I will be talking about that within a few slides from here a little bit more, so will Lori. Lastly, events. Our directors actually have the opportunity to come up with a special event in at least one of their buildings each month to kind of coordinate and to get our students involved with our lunch programs. So just a little bit about the nutrition group for those who do not know. We've actually been around since 1975. We started in a very small few districts. We now are we actually are stretched out in around 7 states in about 276 accounts. This isn't only in the K through 12 division, it's also in commissary and facilities management.
See pictures of our open house and kindergarten orientation. At our kindergarten orientation, the students got to practice their numbers, was always important there, and take tour of the cafeteria along with getting a small snack. And then parents got to receive useful information like September's menus, free and reduced apps, information about Lunch for Life, which is, like she said, is happening in the next 2 days for the kindergartners, and free breakfast for all students.
So every year before we start school, the directors, regional managers, and upper management actually get together at our annual summer seminars. This is actually not just a way of rejuvenating everyone to get back into the school year, but also a way for us to gain our training hours that are required through USDA and PDE. So this year's theme was actually focused on positivity and how our kindness feeds others and changes the world.
So as directors, we were given the book The Positive Dog to read over the summer, and actually it was a really good read. We attended the summer seminar in Wilkes-Barre Mohegan Sun Casino, and basically the book is about that if we feed ourselves positivity, others and ourselves will benefit.
Another training event that we have a few weeks before school starts is our professional development days and our opening meetings. These are based to give that training needed to our hourly employees and also to get them rejuvenated for the school year. This is a way that they also gain all of their training for the USDA and PDE requirements. Each year, this is based on different areas of training where our directors actually have the opportunity to train the hourly staff. And within the last few years, these trainings have been held at Susquehanna University in Selinsgrove.
And as you can see from the pictures, we had like a theme there for the game night where the staff got to play like board games and game shows and to learn about topics like passive, opera versus serve, civil rights, and cost control. And they all had fun being contestants and winning prizes. And then I also have pictures of opening day. So with just the Millersburg staff, we went over our admin review and we trained on that and our production records. So here you can just see a quick slide of me training at the Trivia Pursuit. I was in charge of that room, and contestants got to battle to win prizes and questions pertaining to offer versus serve. So here you can see my staff from both buildings. I'm happy to say we are fully staffed with a sub, so that's exciting. And I maintained 7 of my 8 employees from last year, which is also very awesome. So here we have some remastered programs. We don't have the cup that's up there, we don't do the coffee and such, but we are going to do, they have the featured faves. I do a lot of the favorites all the time anyways, but I'm excited about doing the action stations. So action stations are kind of similar to what we did at Lankerville. So we did like a pizza day, and they had like a pizza party where they got to pick their toppings for their pizzas. So it's similar to that. So we're gonna do like macaroni and cheese bar where they get to pick a topping for their macaroni and cheese, or the hot dog bar where they get to pick toppings for their hot dogs over at Lankerville, or we're gonna have a burger bar where they get to pick the toppings for their hamburger. And the students I found really liked that over at Lankerville, and also here at the high school I did one for breakfast for Belgian waffles, and they got to pick the toppings, and it increased our participation quite a bit at all those events, so. And then this here is our refined program. So one of the things that nutrition offers is TNG Cares program, which twice a year I get to pick 2 of my employees to receive a small gift prize for doing their excellent day-to-day things that they do here in the kitchen.
So we're proud to say that TNG actually has started a TNG charity club. This is a great club. We've actually helped out many individuals this year who were in dire need and also hardships. We also offer scholarships and grants to our students now, and there was quite a few that were given out within our area this year, which is, I think it's absolutely amazing, especially, so we're gonna continue to support all of these needs again this year. And another new program, this is something like I had talked about, was the nutrition education programs. So these are, we want nutrition education not to be just singly one day here or there. We actually want to bring this into our cafeterias every day. So there is a lot of information that we've actually supplied to our directors. Lori will be doing some of these programs this year. They will be held for breakfast and for lunch within our cafeterias. And also, there is like a minimum of 2 events at least that we do require for them to complete. Some of these examples are our Fruity Fridays, build your own fruit salad, and make your own garden salad. These are good events because I've already had events at some of my other districts where we had some of those local vendors come in too, and to kind of give some information about nutrition. We also have Molly the Cow coming back this school year, and that is coming up in October. So she will be over in Lankerville, and the students, and not only the students who are actually eating lunch, but also the packers will have the opportunity to get those samples, to learn a little bit about nutrition.
So like Jen said, we're going to be having Molly on October 13th over at Lankerville. I'll be giving out some fact sheets, fun facts about dairy. We'll have this, they can actually, since breakfast is free, they'll actually be able to get a full-size smoothie or a cow donut so that they're gonna look like cow print on the donut. And they'll get activity pages. So they'll get to choose from either the smoothie or the donut, and they can get that for free. So that'll up our participation there. And then there'll also be samples, like if the kids don't want, say that free breakfast or whatever, they just want to try it, I'll have some free samples there of the smoothies too. I'm also planning on doing, I did this event at Lankerville last year, but I did something different on the menu, but I was going to do the Excited About Breakfast, which they just love their pancakes over there, so I'm gonna do toppings for their pancakes, and it's amazing how if you just put a little bit of Cool Whip and some sprinkles on top, they're just like, they just think it's the best thing. So that really makes them excited over there. And then I was gonna do Fruity Friday here at the high school later on in the year. And this is, like we said, Nutrition for Life program is coming up this week. And just the kindergartners will get free a free lunch, and also have some little prizes for all the kindergartners, so we don't want anybody upset. And I'm actually giving out puppy chow. I was elbows deep in all that puppy chow here yesterday. I have it all backed up, and there's little samples and the free sample things there. But they're part of our Tasty Bites program, so that's going to be given to all the Lankerville kids over there that have a lunch tomorrow. And basically, this program is to try and encourage the kids that don't normally eat lunch by the National School Lunch Program.
So customer engagement is definitely most important to us. Ways that we do that is actually by offering student taste testings. And we also today, as you have seen, brought some board sampling this year. So we hope that you do try those samples. There's some great like dumplings over there, which is new on our menu this year. And we also have chips with queso, which is excellent. But with the whole customer engagement, we definitely, our students matter the most to us, and their voices are what matters. So that's why we actually hold our annual YAC meetings, our Youth Advisory Council meetings also, to get that information from them so we know what the likes and dislikes are and ways to improve our food service program, because that's truly what makes us successful also.
So Lunchables, I'm not sure if Lankerville have ever done them before, but they're a big success over there. So 2 days a week, we're doing Lunchables instead of the salads. Like a good example is before we might sell 10, 15 salads on a good day, but we're selling 30 to 40 Lunchables compared to the salads. The kids are really excited. They're having, we had the chicken nugget one, and then we have the Billy Joe and pizza one, and it seems to be a pretty good success over there.
Yeah, and these Lunchables are actually they're comparable to the Lunchables that are in the grocery store, except these are a little bit more healthier.
And this slide here kind of shows you like where I was at in August, how many breakfast, lunch, and a la carte, what my sales are like. And basically the first column is very similar to the budget numbers, however my a la carte is way higher. And then my September one is, as you can see, is improved by 20. I mean, we're easily hitting almost 400 right now. Steadily, September started off a little slow, but then like now we've been hitting pretty much almost 400 every day. And breakfast, we're definitely in the 170s every day. Part of the reason the a la carte is so high, and you're probably thinking, are they all eating just snacks? No. That is because we did a faculty menu, and that has been great. We do a delivery system with Paige Allman's kids and her students in her class, and they deliver them to the staff. So staff members that are normally eating lunch because they don't have time, they come down, they pick up the lunches, I have them all ready to go, and they take them to the teacher's classroom or wherever they need them to be sent. And you think, wow, how does that increase it that much? Well, I'm doing at least 5 more adult meals every day than I did before, and if you kind of do the math on that, you can see the increase. I probably pretty much doubled the adult a la carte. And this is last year in review. I did the duck donut theme over at Lankerville, which was a huge success. I believe that I'm going to do that again this year because they loved it that much. It was just, we did like a cookies and cream, and I just did Oreos on top, and they just thought that was so exciting. And I did peanut butter cup, I did peanut butter icing on the donuts, and like I said, the pizza party one was a big success. I did Mickey Mouse's birthday. So we're gonna be doing some different events this year. We're gonna be doing National Pasta Day here at the high school. Like I said, the macaroni and cheese bar. So we got lots of things planned here for the next school year.
So we just want to thank you all for your time tonight, and we look forward to an amazing school year together. If any of you have any questions ever, please feel free to reach out to Lori or myself. We will be here to assist you at any time. And please make sure you try the samples.
Thank you.
So I have a question. So also from what, I forget where I heard this, but you're also reducing some of the food waste also by some of the things that are part of the meal, and then, can you explain some of that process this year?
Sure, so definitely with reducing the waste too, I think a good part of that is if we do have any kind of things left over, for instance, we actually work with our corporate office too, which gives us a lot of different tips. So even like as far as toast or anything like that, we're making like croutons with them. I know we're trying really hard, like we want to always have a little bit extra so we're not running out of food, but yet, you know, if we're able to reuse that product somehow to make another recipe, we definitely do that. It's not just going into the trash.
Like
So-
example, today we had like 9 servings of meatballs left over, and we will use that, we'll either make the meatball subs or we'll cut the meatballs up and put it on pizza.
Right.
So,
And then I think what I was thinking of was, like, portions of their meal that they're not interested in, maybe?
oh,
The
okay,
kids are-
here we go, I didn't
Okay,
mention this, so
yeah.
we
I
have.
found that
we
interesting
have
and
shares.
helpful for
We
kids.
have share tables at both the cafeterias. So what that is you can't just share anything that's open, it has to be all closed containers. So, I mean, at breakfast, just here at the high school, we would have like probably about 2-3 milks that somebody did one. And then we have like some, like oranges, we can't take whole apples because of the skin, but, like bananas or whatever left over. We could, I would say 7 to 8 items left over each breakfast. If somebody is still hungry, they are more than welcome than to go up and take whatever is in there. They can take it all. It doesn't really matter, but in the end, what's great about it is I can take that back and reuse it. So that is actually, and then maybe it's stopping students from throwing food too, so.
Or putting apples in their locker.
Right,
or
exactly. So
bananas in
I
their
feel like
locker,
it's a
yeah.
win-win on.
It's definitely good for all school districts. Every school district should take part in it,
Yeah.
for sure. I see it out there a lot now, which it's definitely been helpful, especially like Lori said, where those kids are so hungry too. You know, and it's something healthy they're getting too, so.
Thank you for doing that, I just wanted to mention that, thank you.
Other questions? Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
All right, committee chair reports, human resources. We did have a human resources meeting on the 5th. You guys have the minutes from that meeting. Budget and finance. We did have a budget and finance meeting on the 5th as well. Again, you guys have the minutes for that. If it's ed policy, anything to update to Neil?
Nope, everything is there. The policy that's on the agenda for tonight, the recommendations and the minutes are also there for everybody to see.
Okay, and so that meeting was on August 22nd. And facilities and security, we also, I believe, met on the 22nd. Any?
Yes, the minutes are attached.
Thank you. So next thing on the agenda, we have approval of minutes. We have the regular board meeting from the 15th of August, the ed policy from the 22nd of August. We had an ad hoc sports committee meeting as well, which the minutes are there. That was on the 22nd. Facility and security committee on the 22nd. Human resources on the 5th. And budget and finance on the 5th. I entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Mr. Miller, second. Mr. Edelson, any question? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Board liaison, capital area intermediate unit.
Nothing to report?
Thank you. Harrisburg Area Community College is vacant at this point. And Act 32.
We have a meeting tomorrow night.
Okay. DSBA, Mr. Edelson.
Yep, so PSB's PSBA's Fall Advocacy Week is starting October 2nd through the 6th, and registration is now open for in-person and virtual things. So if you're interested in that, go to the website and check it out. That's it for me.
You?
Yep.
Financial report, budget status reports?
Yep.
Anything?
Yep, I do. So one thing in my attempt to streamline things, you'll notice I moved the approval of the bills and disbursements down under action items. In talking with Dr. Petishnik, it seems like that's where they should be anyway. So that is the first item under action items, is to approve the bills and disbursements. So at this part in the agenda, you truly are just looking at the financial reports. You can see the budget status reports there, revenue and expense budget summary. The only thing I'll mention with those are, we like to compare to, where were we last year at this time? What I will tell you is this year we are going to be off because of the impact of ESSER funds. So both on the revenue and the expenditure side, our percentages are not going to line up to the previous years. While I mentioned ESSER, this is maybe for a later part, but I'll just say this part. ESSER 2 had a deadline to be spent by the end of this September 30th. We did process that payment. We got a pay application from Fry Lutz, the HVAC contractor, and so we expended all of those funds. We did it last week. I think it was $919,512, I believe. So that is paid. I gave that information to Mr. Leiter. He will go ahead through federal programs and report that we have spent that money so that we can get that reimbursed. So while I mentioned ESSER, I wanted to throw that in there as well. So nothing else really to report on the revenue or budget summary. I know last month I had pointed out on the revenue side that we hadn't received any state funds yet with the budget impasse. If you look at that revenue budget summary, you'll see that funds are flowing from the state now. Below that, we have our treasurer's report of the general fund, the capital reserve fund, capital projects fund, food service fund, and student activity fund. What I did this month, maybe just, I don't know, you tell me if it's helpful or not, but I gave you like a dashboard on each item that shows you, as of the end of that month, it shows you where the dollars are and what the interest rates are on each account in each fund. So if you find that helpful, I'll continue to do that. The attachments there are essentially just the bank reconciliation process that we do through FIS. So the attachments there are just a confirmation that the bank statements and our system are aligned and matching. So if there's anything else or different that you want me to report, I'll be glad to do that. But this is my attempt this month to streamline the financial account reports.
Questions? I'll entertain a motion to approve all of them, 9.1 through 9.6. Mr. Enders, second. Mr. Eggleston, any question? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Staff report. Mr. Leiter.
Good evening, everyone. I thought I'd take a few moments to bring you up to date on where pre-K counts is. So folks that have requested applications have received those. Those applications have come back in. There's a scoring process that I'm going through to attribute a score to each particular student, which will then be rank filed, and then those students will qualify for the program based on their score. or not. So we, at this time, my board notes said there are 15, that we received 15. Yesterday, we received number 16, so we were pretty close to that 17 mark that I'm looking for. The classroom in Lankerville that is being cleared is pretty, most of the things have been moved out of it. The furniture order for that classroom has been made, and it has actually been shipped, so we should start to receive it at the end of this week, beginning of next week. I would like to give a special thank you to Rod Whitmer. The clearing of the classroom and moving all of those items was an ask that we didn't anticipate this year. At the beginning of the school year is always a busy time, and Rod has been a super big help to make that happen. I'd also like to thank Christina Lahr in the elementary school, because she was displaced by our decision to do that. So, and she had a beautiful room set up, and she had to take it all back down. And she told me after I told her that she went home and cried. So I want to thank Christina too, because she was a huge sport in making all of this happen as well. Since I'm helping out in the high school this week, I thought I'd close with a quick anecdote. Since last Friday, I was in the teacher's faculty room here in the high school, and I ran into Mr. Pop, who is one of our substitutes. And he shared with me, he said, "I love the sub here." And I said, "Well, why is that?" He goes, you guys have the best kids." He said, "I subbed at Upper Dauphin, I subbed at Halifax." He said, "You guys have the best kids." He said, "Your kids are respectful." He said, "I'm not saying that kids in other schools aren't respectful." He said, "But on the large," he said, "substitutes want jobs in Millersburg." And the evidence he provided for that, he said, with our frontline system, he said, you have to be extremely quick as a substitute teacher. When that job comes up, he says, if you don't grab it right away, it's gone, because people want to come and sub here. And I know as a parent, when people tell me, when teachers tell me that academically, that I don't worry about what they tell me academically, but when they say, "Mike, your son and your daughter are excellent examples of human beings," it is the highest compliment. And so in my mind, Mr. Pop gave us the highest compliments, testament to our students, to our parents, to our teachers, to our leadership. So I just wanted to share that with you. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Frank?
Hi, everyone. I like to second what Mike said. We have great students and we have great staff here, very, very dedicated. We had a really good start to the school year in special education. 2 paraprofessionals started at the beginning of the school year, continuing to identify the needs of students in outside placement, and had some students return this school year who were in outside placement. Attended IEP meetings for students and participated in back to school night, and had the opportunity to meet with parents and students.
Questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Troutman?
Good evening. So I do have a long list. I'm not going to hit every item, but just go down a couple of them. So Chuck continues to paint in areas of the middle and high school. So I don't know if anybody took notice, but the lobby up front is the latest. The scaffolding's still there. He's working on bulkheads, and the walls where the TV is hung. They're at the secure vestibule of the high school, them little alcoves. They look really sharp and bright. So again, when we have people come in, the public come in for whatever it may be, musicals or whatever, that will be, I feel, putting our best foot forward. You know, it really looks sharp. So hopefully he continues to be willing to do it. He works like all weekends and stuff, so he works a full-time job and then he stays, you know, late to do that. So want to just shout out to him. Vertical incline lifts, so they are complete, they are installed. The PA Labor and Industry Inspector is scheduled to come on the 29th of this month at 9 a.m. to inspect them. That's what we were waiting on. So until they were done, Garaventa could not call and set that up. So again, that's where we're at with that. We do have Plan B in our back pocket if somebody would show up and need to get into the gym. So again, we do have a plan B, if we do have to go that way. Used our Vector platform to assign our required Act 55 trainings to all the employees. So, and I know Bobby has used that system also. I found it's been very helpful. It tracks everything too, which is huge. We have to prove that we and our staff completed these trainings. So, completed our Rally Point walks. Last month, I think I reported that we did Lankerville. Again, this was, third time was a charm. First time it rained, second time it was hotter than blazes. It was absolutely perfect last Thursday when we did it. The walk was perfect. So we completed that and did that. Again, learned a couple things. Every year we get better. Students learn, you know, who can make it, who can't, you know, what it's all about. So, also did the safe to say trainings with the students. So that is complete again. That's a requirement of Act 55, part of the safety and security coordinator's responsibilities. I continue to work with the Lankerville, I'm going to call it the playground team. I did say PTO in here because I think they have their hands in this. They want to put money towards this also. So other equipment over and above what came out of the facilities committee as recommended to be voted on this evening. So I did work with them, and we have options. Their idea was to let the kids pick. They're going to have 3 different, I printed out nice big printouts. What piece of equipment do you want as students? So again, that was their idea, and I said, then I'll let you go fundraising them. We got to pick our piece of equipment, you know. So been working with them. So the ball is in their court for now. So that's pretty exciting though. Thermo Fisher, I want to thank them again for their donations. We got really nice stainless steel tables on wheels, so we can use them in our shops, you know, areas and stuff like that. So really well-built tables. Have some more office chairs coming and some cabinets. I was working with Tim Williams this morning. He was texting me back and forth. So as things come up, I'm just very grateful for that relationship that Millersburg was able to he calls us first. So I'm going to hopefully keep that open and keep things flowing our way, things that we need. Submitted the district's gaming grant on August 24th. Ron Boyer, I met with him. He is the president, was the president. He was the president when I met with him of the Johnson Memorial Library, Johnson Library Memorial Association. I proposed to them about a refresh on the lobby of the Johnson building, the entrance to the Johnson Library, the entrance to the Johnson Gymnasium. So they had tasked me with getting some pricing together, getting some bid specs together, just what do we think this project is going to cost us. So that's where we're at with that process. Certainly more to come when I get information. They may shut me down as soon as they, hey, that's too much, or hey, yeah, let's keep going. Let's dig into this even further. So again, more to come on that. Again, the last item here, did work with the facilities committee over the past couple months, and again, kind of developed a piece of playground equipment. 2 different options that are going to be on the agenda for this evening for you guys to consider. So, any questions?
Is there any update on the tennis courts from that maybe becoming basketball courts?
We, Dr. Petushnik, Mr. Petrie, and myself are on an email chain right now with 2 borough council members attempting to get a meeting together. So that's where we're at with that.
Right.
They're to the point, they met, the borough and the Little League met.
Mm-hmm.
They want to bring us in now.
Okay.
I said, let them hash it out, figure out what their feeling is. So we're to that point. We just have to figure out a meeting evening.
Great, thanks.
Yep, absolutely. All right, thank you guys.
Thanks, Nancy.
Mr. Harris.
Okay, you all have my report. There are a few changes. If you're looking at the report under electrical rough and underground, for F, that is now 100% complete. Everything's okay. CMU bearing walls in G went from 10 to about 25. Hollow metal door frames went from 35 to about 50. And in G section, F section, nothing, concrete's not poured. Electrical and plumbing wall rough-in went from about 10 to 25%. So things are moving along, and that's a good thing. The retaining wall is 85 to 95% completed. They're going to be done tomorrow. At least that's what their plan is. Sidewalks, lawn reseed at the high school and the library, and the sign entry, that's 100% complete. And other than that, things are pretty much as it's shown on the report. In summary, the project's moving along as we can expect it. Metal shop owner took occupancy on Monday. At least that's what my plan was. Any questions?
So that retaining wall, is that to the field?
I'm sorry?
Is that retaining wall, the segmental retaining wall, that's to the field?
Yeah, it's between the building, the new elementary addition, and the bleachers can press box, that area. It separates that.
And that's being completed tomorrow,
That is being finished tomorrow, yes.
not backfilled yet and
Oh, yeah, it had.
backfilled and
Retaining
everything.
wall, you have to backfill as you build the wall, because that's what holds it in, holds it back.
So then what are we anticipating for opening up those bleachers then?
So we are anticipating power to be early next week. And then we will then be able to start to utilize, once they get that in place, a game plan as early as next week for bleachers.
We have to get clearance from the engineers that can happen, or what does that look like?
We will have conversation once that's complete with Crabtree, and I'm looking at Dan here.
Is Q&A on site, Donald?
Yes.
For, okay.
They are on site as their contract requires. They are doing compaction testing, and I spoke to the young lady who was here the other day, and everything's moving along as it should, so, yes.
And would Q&A be the ones to certify the use of the bleachers, that the wall is?
That would be my recommendation, to call, to talk to them,
Yeah.
as well as the architect's site engineers, K&W. Both would be appropriate, so everyone can feel satisfied that we've gone the entire gamut of getting approvals. Yes.
So there's some inspections yet, but we do anticipate A, having electric, and B, being able to utilize those bleachers.
Couple weeks.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And just another clarification, because we had talked about, does everyone know what he means by F and G? Like, do you know
No, I'm sorry.
the sections? You want to just tell them what you mean by F and G?
The building was broken into two sections by the drawings as well as the general contractor schedule-wise. The G is the main entry, F is the back half of the building. The two are separated by the cafeteria area, the center area. That's what separates G from F. F swings around and also includes the F and B tie-in, which is, into the high school. So it's broken into basically two areas. Schedule-wise, they're, in my opinion, doing fine.
Other questions? Thank you, Mr. Harrison.
This is easy. I enjoy it.
Mr. Ross?
So there's a few small ones and then a larger one at the end. So this month we've pretty much finished implementing Frontline and the FIS integrations to help Eric, Missy, and Sally hopefully quite a bit. That'll help with their being able to track absences a lot quicker and a lot less time consuming. So that was finished up this month. We're also just finishing up some computer upgrades as well as repurposing a couple that we replaced this year. We can use those with Mr. Calger's students for any that are attending with him. We've had a couple of courses that need computers, Windows computers specifically, so we're using them down there for them to hopefully get a couple back with that. We also have a couple ready for the pre-K teacher and aide so that they can get rolling as soon as they're in. We've also been working with the CAIU on getting our wireless access controller for all of our wireless updated to prepare for next year. When we have to replace all the points, that'll be a lot less work next year to be ready for that. We're also working with them for E-rate still for all of that. I believe we're currently on schedule to have budget numbers by the end of December, if I remember right. Which it works out. We have Ron Sims and Jim Brill here from the IU. Both of them know E-rate better than I do. They are also here to answer if there are any questions. On tonight's for voting is the CAPPAC initiative, the Capital Area Task Force Preventing Against Cybercrime, I believe is full name. It's it's a bit of a mouthful, but it is their cybersecurity consortium agreement that went into effect last year. We had it in the budget for this year, so tonight was the voting to vote on if we are agreeing with that. And they were here to answer any questions anyone had in regards to CAPPAC.
In addition to that, maybe you and Mr. Leiter and Mrs. Schmelz just want to talk about the process of Tribe TV so far this year, just to give the board an update?
I forgot because that was a last minute addition. We are meeting with students and sending out some emails and announcements to middle and high school students to try and get Tribe TV back up and running. We're trying to see how much interest we have. It does sound like we have a few students already to try and get that up and running. Hopefully we'll know more in the next week or two on where we're going with that.
Sounds like middle school students at this point, is that what the
I believe we
feedback at this
have
point?
2 middle school and we should be meeting with high school this week.
So just for the public's concern on Tribe TV, we're working on it, still trying to get those individuals who will be interested in helping us out.
Yeah.
Very good.
Thank you. Any questions? Mr. Coward.
Good evening, everyone. Right now, we have 48 part-time, 14 full-time Kiowa students. Something that I want to point out is that last year, since the implementation of the online coordinator, we had 87% of students completed their courses last year. The year previously, the year 21-22 was 69%. So a pretty big increase from the past couple of years. Right now, it's kind of smoothing out now with students getting enrolled with Kiowa since there's close to 62 students enrolled. I'm currently taking classes at IUP to receive a Cooperative Education Coordinator certificate. I love those Tuesday nights. Sorry, it's an inside joke with me. And then, right now, Millersburg is now a NOCD testing site. So once we get up and running for diversified occupations, students will be able to get tested on a certain subject or certain skill, but right now we are a testing site. We're going to get FBLA, which is a requirement for our diversified occupations, which I think we're going to vote on tonight as well. But overall, that's I don't want to talk about everything on here, but any questions for me?
So do we have any numbers, Matt, on the outside cyber placements? Do we track or do we know what the completion rates are for them at all? Do we have any way of knowing that?
We actually, just today, we looked at the PA Future Ready Index for just a local charter school called CCA. And right now, CCA, I think the 4-year completion percentage for graduation is something going along like 57%, compared to Millersburg, which is close to like 95%.
Right.
So when it comes to completion, when it comes to completion percentage for outside cybers, yes, it's very low compared to ours.
So that's their overall, that's not necessarily Millersburg district, not necessarily students that we are paying tuition for, what their completion rate, that's their overall completion. Because that's my understanding as well, is that the completion rate, the graduation rate is remarkably low, and that might not be a well-known fact out there among people enrolling in that. And comparing, what we're able to provide in district and with Keola in district hybrid, and comparing that to that, I think is important. So I'm just curious to see what that looks like.
I'm glad you brought that because we actually, we're planning on trying to market us a lot better. For example, our percentage for students being proficient in language arts and math is much, much higher than CCA. And in retrospect, CCA's reading proficiency is at like 4%, 4 or 5% for reading. And math is, I believe, around 5% as well. So we need to market Millersburg, and that's a game plan that we have coming up.
And my math is so bad that I don't even know what those numbers mean. So
Well,
what does that mean? What,
Oh,
compared
no,
to
for-
what our percentage is?
When it comes to the PA Future Ready Index, it will talk about how many students are proficient at math. For example, when they take the PSSAs for grades 3 all the way up into Keystones. Millersburg, for example, I think the reading was, I believe, around 60%. And for CCA, for students scoring proficient or better, was only 5%, like 4 or 5%.
And ours was 60?
It was around that.
Wow, okay.
I'm paraphrasing.
We
I
will
could be
have
off
that,
a little bit.
like, as we were
Sure.
talking today, we plan to, we're calling it marketing, but really we're gonna be stating just facts.
Well, that's
Here
same
it is.
thing.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And those-
Appreciate that.
Those numbers are good, you know, we've seen those before, you know, where the school kind of ranks, those green, yellow, and reds and everything. So that's good information for us to see,
Yep.
just in general. But comparing to what some other, you know, options are doing is good as well.
Our graduation rates were wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you, man.
No report from high school, and, oh, Cody's back. Mr. Godsey.
So I kind of have a two-part report. You could, yeah. if you
Yep,
could.
okay.
While Mr. Petrie's getting my presentation up, I'll go over my actual report. So the fall cooperative sports numbers, I have those there for you. I also included the non-cooperative sports for both Millersburg and Upper Dolphin, just as an FYI. All the fall eligibility lists were submitted to the PIAA with no issues, and then all the fall sports fees were deposited to the bank. And then my last point in this section is, I've had the band play at several soccer games. While it's a new thing, I think it's going very well. You know, I think there's some things we can make better as we go along, but for the first time out the chute, I think it's going relatively well. So before I go into that presentation, is there any questions on what I just had there for you? Okay. Oh. What, just this?
Yep.
Okay. So last, I believe it was September, Dr. Kuzic, does that sound right? September, October. We did another sports survey where every kid, every student, we asked them to answer, would they be interested in this, yes, no, or if they didn't qualify for whatever reason, to participate in that sport. So the high school results came back as follows. I'm not going to read through all of them. But there was one sport, boys volleyball was the only sport that had over a 50% yes. And we did, how many, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then for the middle school, we had, again, just one sport, junior high girls volleyball was over that 50% yes of interest. So based off both survey results, I'd like to propose to run open gyms in March and April, which for junior high girls volleyball and for varsity boys volleyball, that is the traditional season for both those sports. And I want to run open gyms in the spring of '24 to help determine if we truly have the student interest needed to potentially start junior high girls volleyball and varsity JV boys volleyball. If we have enough interest after we run open gyms, I'd like the opportunity to present a proposal to add both sports for the spring of '25. And these additions, based off again, I don't know, just because you fill out a survey doesn't mean you're going to show up and want to participate, but I would say if we have anywhere close to the number of yeses, we would not need to be in a cooperative agreement to pull both these off. So I have a little bit of a proposal of what this would look like. Junior high girls and varsity boys volleyball are going to kind of look fairly similar with a few caveats. So in my mind, if we do move forward with this open gym idea, we'd have open gyms twice a week after school in March and April. We'd open it up to any girls interested 6th through 8th grade.
Towards the end of the season, I've already talked with the Halifax athletic director. They're running a model very similar to this. So we've talked about having kind of a, I guess it would be a controlled scrimmage. It's not going to be a technical game because technically in the eyes of the PLA, we're not an official team. I'd call it a controlled scrimmage. We could potentially get actual officials. We could have parents officials. We could have volunteers. Like, there's a couple things we could do with that. But I know Halifax would be on board if we were to do this, doing something with us in the spring. Upper Dauphin, East Juniata, and Juniata are also considering starting junior high volleyball, junior high girls volleyball as well. So if more schools have some kind of model like this in the spring, we can potentially do a controlled scrimmage with them as well. So the boys, like I said, is going to be fairly similar model with a few caveats. So again, I'd also like to do 2 open gyms twice a week that we'd open up for any boy from in 8th to 12th grade. I'm not aware of any local school districts looking to start varsity boys volleyball. So I think for them, we would have to do just a solely open gym model. We wouldn't be able to inter-squad or have a controlled scrimmage with any other schools. What I would like to do for them is if we have enough interest to have like an actual inter-squad game where we open it up for fans. And again, we can do that with junior high as well, but open it up for fans and have it kind of like a real event for them. So the financial impact, the only financial impact if we tried this in the spring would be transportation if we were to go to Halifax or another school for a controlled scrimmage. The coaches running these open gyms would be a volunteer, and I do have someone interested in being the head coach and kind of spearheading this initiative for potentially both teams if the board allows us to move forward with this. So what I'm thinking for after if we do move forward with open gyms, taking those participation results, I'm almost viewing this as kind of like we're taking attendance at every open gym we offer. We can't make students attend everything, but I do think it's good to keep track of who's coming and if they stick with it throughout the entire time. And I'd use that information to make a recommendation to whether we should or should not try to move forward with adding either of these as a sport. I'd say the determination should be made in either May or June to ensure there's enough time to create a schedule. I know we've talked about scheduling before with the other cooperative sports agreements we have. Volleyball is for junior high sports are not too difficult to schedule for. Varsity boys volleyball is starting to pop up in District 3. So a lot of the Christian schools are starting it because they don't have enough kids for their baseball program, so they're dropping baseball and starting volleyball. So I don't think I would have a very difficult time scheduling because there's several schools starting boys volleyball as well. So for the junior high girls, they play a combination of the Tri-Valley League and Mid-Penn. And then for varsity boys, they play a combination of the CCAC, which is the Christian League, the Mid-Penn, the BCIAA, which is the Burke County League, and the Lancaster-Lebanon League. That would be kind of what their schedule would look like if we move forward with this after the open gyms. Any questions?
So do we look into anything other than just those 2 sports? Just because there's over 50% in one sport, but you have, you got like junior high boys soccer, you have 35 kids, you can only put 11 kids on the field at one time. Same as volleyball, as softball, girls soccer, you have 28, Did we look into any more?
So in my conversation with Dr. Petusnik, I thought it was big to kind of crawl before we run. I would like to add as much as possible. I think this is me personally, since I've been in this role as athletic director. I think the junior high opportunities are lacking within the Tri-Valley League. That's just me personally in my past. Again, I come from the Christian League. We had junior high girls volleyball, junior high soccer, junior high track. The Tri-Valley League as a whole doesn't offer a lot of junior high things. But the reason I went with those 2 is because they had the most interest, and I was thinking that if we're going to try something that I know we have the most interest in to start.
Can we broaden our horizon outside of Tri-Valley League and Mid-Penn, where they have all these sports also? You're focusing just on Tri-Valley League, but a lot of there's no softball in Tri-Valley League except for Williams Valley and Tri-Valley. Nobody else has it around here, but you go over the mountain south, they all have them down there. You know, and up in Schuylkill League, they have a bunch. So just to focus on Tri-Valley League, I think we gotta broaden it into, like you did with volleyball, boys volleyball, down to mid-pen. That would be, but baby steps are good, thank you. I appreciate it.
Girls field hockey, that's a fall sport?
Correct.
Okay. So even though there's interest there, there's obviously more than likely competition with soccer, I would imagine. That would be what you would run into. My colleague, Mr. Enders, what is the middle school soccer season?
That's a complicated question. Some of our school, and again, I know we just talked about, but for the Tri-Valley League, a couple of our schools play in the fall, a couple of our schools play in the spring. And they can't seem to figure out, for various reasons, they don't agree.
What about Schuylkill? When does Schuylkill play?
I don't know off the top of my head. I know the mid-10 plays in the spring. I'm pretty confident about that. But when I worked in Lancaster, I believe that the 11 league played in the fall. So it's kind of where the league their leagues fall.
And there are other sports and blah, blah, blah. Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
If you would have any questions, now would be the time. I think Cody was, when we were prior to tonight, I think that the activity's going up on the field. He was trying to get back up to the field if possible, so if there's any questions, or if you'd like him to hang around till the vote, that can happen too, but we were trying to let him go up to the game.
I don't have a question. I just want to say, because you didn't just collect numbers and say, here's this many kids are interested. You actually thought through the process of scheduling and how it would work and how to get our kids meaningful competition, even if it's not an official game. So I think that's valuable information for board members as we're about to make a decision tonight. So thank you for putting in that extra work to make sure that we had as much information as possible.
Thank you.
From an administration standpoint, what's the difference between this and a club?
It's new territory for us. I don't have, it would be, most of our clubs run during the day, just say in the high school from that example. Other than that, probably very similar.
Can I jump in with one? I know we talked about a club versus doing it after school. And my concern with that is if you offer it as a club, I don't think that would be a true indication of what the participation would look like because it's during the school day. I think you could use that as maybe a guide, but I want to make, my vision for this is if we do it, make it as close to what the real product is going to be. Because again, my biggest fear in pitching something like this is we go out and do it, and then when we make it official, we have 3 kids.
So when I think club, I think archery. And so archery is after hours. And archery, the parents pay for transportation or drive their kids to these things and so forth. We pay a stipend. We have a volunteer coach. They have their budget and so forth. They have their account. So I'm just wondering kind of where this falls in that. You know, I'm not opposed to doing the volleyball in general and so forth, but you know, why would we transport these athletes but not the archers and so forth? Like, what does that look like?
So is archery a PIAA sport?
No.
No.
I guess that's one thing.
That's it.
From a coding perspective, we do not code anything archery into athletics.
Right. It's a club.
Right.
So this is the same.
I think the difference here is we're kind of running it this way to determine if we have the interest, and then if we have that interest, my goal would be to make it an official sport. So it's kind of like your 1, 2, 3 steps. Do we think we have the interest? I think we do based off the survey. 2, kind of like prove we have the student interest. How many people do we get? How many students do we get coming to this? And then if we make that decision of, I would think after we do these open gyms, the idea would either be we make it an official sport, or we say we don't have enough interest. So I kind of view the open gym model as kind of like a 1-year thing, and whereas archery, that's their model moving, like every year, that's their model.
I could see that as a one-year thing. I'm just saying that if it were, maybe a 2-3 year testing the waters, you run it as a club, let them transport themselves, so there's no money out of pocket.
You could.
You're still gauging interest because it's still after school. It's still all of those things and volunteer coaches and so forth. But if it's a one-year thing, I guess.
Well, I mean, I think that's if we do this, I think we take the numbers and say, hey, we're close, but we're not where we want to be. We want to try it another year.
Right.
You could have that flexibility.
And so the boys was 8 through 12?
Yes.
Okay, so it's a little bit of both. It's a little junior high.
So the only reason I said 8th through 12th is those 8th graders, if we make this a sport, will be 9th graders the following year, for 9th through 12th varsity. Yeah, so that's why I said 8th. Again, since we're not running it as a PIAA official, it's more.
You can do that, though.
You can do that,
You
yes.
can do that, okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cody.
Smell?
Hello, everyone. Well, we had a successful start to the school year in middle school, so we're now in full swing. We have our clubs established, and we have students participating in clubs twice during a cycle. Our student council advisors, they held student council voting last week, and we now have our middle school student council established. They already had a meeting, have their committee set up, and will be meeting again this coming Thursday. Our middle school MTSS team will have our first training out of 4 down at CAIU on Monday, September 25th. During our in-service, we had our teachers working on their student performance measures, iReady training, and we met to further discuss relationships first. During that time, we created our survey, which we gave on Monday. This week, our teachers are giving their iReady diagnostic testing for both math and reading. We now have our positive office referrals, so teachers have been filling out positive office referrals for students. They're called to the office, they're given their certificate, and then we make a phone call home to share the positive referral with their parents or guardian. On the middle school and high school side, we had a successful Meet the Teacher night. In addition to meeting with the teachers, students and parents had the opportunity to meet with SAD, Check and Connect, Members First Bank, Nutrition Inc., and the library. And last week, I was treated to a wonderful history lesson by Mr. Deibler in Mrs. Klinger's room. It was really nice to hear him talk and share about the Millersburg School District and the history of it. And I just wanted to thank Mrs. Klinger for inviting me and scheduling and organizing such a great event. She worked with the Historical Society of Millersburg and the Upper Paxton Township to hold the second Millersburg History Day with the students. So I was able to go around from location to location with the kiddos and take pictures. They're on Facebook and also on the live website. So we really enjoyed that day. So I just wanted to say thank you to her and to our social studies department and to all the teachers that attended that event and made it possible. And continue to follow us on social media and the website to keep up with what we're doing.
And the pictures are attached on your report, so.
Fabulous, thank you for doing that, Ben. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
So kind of same thing, we're having a great start to our year. We're excited about all the things to look forward to coming up. We had really successful, you can see in your notes there, our kindergarten orientation. We had 43 of the 50 families, which I thought was phenomenal. Such a good opportunity for the kiddos to come in, feel comfortable, get that sense of, here's my teacher, here's my room, I know what to expect. Walk through the halls and all that great stuff. So thank you to all my teachers that put that together, and it was a highly successful event. Thank you to Mr. Troutman and our state police for our rally point walk that we did in beautiful weather. But it meant a lot to see, everybody out there supporting us and having that set up for the kiddos to see the police in a great light of that, they're here for us and they're protecting us. So we appreciated all that. Back to school night was an also phenomenal evening. We had 281 students represented by families that evening out of 330 families. Not too bad. So that was another great night. We had a lot of different events. The Boy Scouts were there, PTO was there, a lot of different tables set up that we appreciated them coming out. Great evening.
again, just appreciate everybody that put time and effort into that, staff for being there and being warm and welcoming to all of our kiddos. Our PBIS is kicked off. Every student in the building received the same lessons so that we have the same verbiage throughout, same expectations. They know the 4 Vs, they know what that looks like. It was modeled for them, and we continue to give out V-Bucks to reward those great behaviors, and we're seeing a lot of good things coming from that. Same thing, I'll kind of jump over some stuff. We had our first MTSS meeting with my core team down at the CAIU, so really jumping into how can we best support our students, looking through social, emotional, behavioral, academic, and how do we put a plan together to make that a really strong team. So I'm excited about what that's going to look like this year moving forward, and we have 3 more of those trainings to go through. So good stuff happening at Lankerville that we're excited about. Any questions for me?
Thank you.
Great, thanks.
Mr. Petrie?
Thank you, Mr. Minnick. A few brief items. First being that the business office is gearing up for the annual audit. Our auditors will be here the first week of October, so we're looking forward to that fun. On tonight's action items, I want to point out 2 things. The first one being an invoice from Crabtree and Rohrball, actually 2 of them, number 18 and 19. You'll see the amounts are now much smaller, and actually if you pull up under the action item, if you pull up number 19, invoice 19, you'll see that Crabtree is nearly, that contract is nearly fully paid. There's, I think one of the categories in construction has about $60,000 left in it, thereabouts. So winding down on the Crabtree payments, but I suspect we will see smaller invoices like this throughout until the project's complete. But the bulk of their big invoices are finished. The other item is we will be voting on the PSBA officers this evening. Josh, I don't know if you have anything to add to that. All of the officer positions that are on the agenda are uncontested. So really all we need is for the board to direct me as the secretary to cast the ballot for the positions on the agenda. And that's item number 23, I think it is tonight. So that is all I have.
Thank you. Dr. Krishnan.
Yep, I just want to echo some of the thoughts for the Local History Day activity that was last Friday. Last Tuesday, I had the opportunity to join the group of individuals through the local historical society. Erica Klinger, Nancy Kirkwood, Joel Hunter were there. It was just a good organized event from Tuesday that led into Friday, and a lot of time and effort that went into it. I had the opportunity to participate through most of the stops. Just a great event that started last year. Look forward to it continuing. I know we've had some internal conversations of what it would even be like for some of our staff, especially our new staff, but even our staff that's worked here, to have the opportunity to get some of that information to understand the community and the heritage that's here in Millersburg. So thought it was an excellent event. Look forward to it again next year. Do want to just share, just give some recognition to Homeline Electric and Chris Smucker. The reason we're able to have our games here the last several weeks, our soccer games, has been through a partnership with them where they provided a large generator that's powering our lights. And so if we would not have had that partnership, and if they would not have provided a generator, and for most of the time here it's been as far as donated from that standpoint, we would have been in a very rough spot for our soccer games. And so were able to come through and help us, and they deserve to be recognized for all they've done for us. So we definitely appreciate it. Our enrollment report tonight, just to cover that real quick, we're running in around that 700, 703 number. Matt, the work of Matt and the online academy is reflected in some of those numbers and just where we're at. If you look at our special ed numbers, they've increased. And some of those increases has been the students returning from those outside special ed placements where they weren't necessarily on our PIMS reports, that now they're reflective in our numbers. And so those, from my standpoint, and when we look at our financials for our district, those are positive impacts that we're having to our budget from that standpoint. So we're leaning and going in the right direction. We've got some work to do yet, but they're reflective in that. Enrollment report, I do want to touch on just an item or two tonight on our agenda. Of course, Cody was here, and we're going to talk about those direction for junior high girls and varsity boys volleyball. The K&W additional services agreement. So we had received approval back in July or August to have that practice field relatively flattened. In other words, it'll be runoff for water still, but so that it's more usable space. At that time, that was $24,238. Some of the things that we've learned since then is that our conversations that we had with ECI and with the contractor for removing materials, we should have went through the architect. And so from that standpoint, once we went through the architect and realized we needed a plan then for runoff, that's what's coming here tonight, is recommended for the additional service agreement with K&W to create that plan, and that is $14,620. And so that's a little bit of a background there of where we're at and where that's coming into play. Looking just at our agenda, those seem to be the two items that I wanted to touch on from that standpoint. So that concludes my report, if anyone doesn't have questions.
Questions?
Real quick, I do have another, and if I'd had it in on my report in there, I'd have caught that. Thanks, Eric. Back several weeks ago, I did email out to the board a copy of just a rough proposal from Delta Development Group. Some of the questions that are, they're out in the public, they're in part of our committees. What is our plan for Lankerville once we set up shop here at this facility with a brand new elementary school? I do plan to have conversations with the board here directly to begin having just open dialogue of what we want to do and maybe what the process might look like. For example, one of the things I have right now with Delta Development is just a 5-page layout per 20-minute conversation with Eric and I back last May or June, with the idea of trying to identify potential uses for that property, potential uses, whether it be for the district, potential uses if it would be someone someone as in a company or a builder would come in, and maybe, what's that look like? Does that look like something that a property we hang on to as a district? Does that look like something we sell? Is that something we try and go out after grant dollars to try and see if we can't get, whether it be state or federal help, to maybe turn that into a more usable space that could in turn generate tax revenue? So those are things Eric and I are looking at. Did anyone have any opportunity to take a look at this 5-page document in the last couple of weeks? And if so, do you have any, for where we're at with time tonight, not an in-depth conversation, but any thoughts or guidance from our standpoint?
So my only thought and guidance would be, we really need to talk to, I think, the township and the borough to see if they're interested in participating in that plan and potentially supporting it financially. Because this isn't, we're not just looking at something for the school district, we're potentially looking at something for the whole community. So it would make sense to me to at least reach out and see if they're willing to participate.
So what we'll do is maybe Eric and I will maybe go on a little bit of a road show here, not too far down the road, but down to the borough and out to Upper Paxton, see if there's interest from that standpoint.
Why borough?
In the borough, but it's gonna, depending on what would happen, it would definitely impact the borough. It could.
Actuals.
So from that standpoint, maybe that's where we'll go next. And then in the coming weeks here, next meeting or two, start to try and, I guess my goal would be to get direction for leadership team here of, which direction we want to go. Is this something we want to pursue or not pursue? And if we do, great. If we want to refine this, that's something we can take a look at. If we don't, that's fine too, but what's plan B, plan C? But next year's rolling around, and as far as for all of us, we want to get moving on what that option's going to look like.
This, reading that, this could really benefit Millersburg School District, plus the community and the taxpayers, everything. If we would happen to go with that plan.
Correct.
Correct?
And just, the basic idea of, we've talked, even Mr. Minnick and I, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and we say, what if? And we don't want to be saying what if or what we could have done differently to try and best utilize that property. We would want to have data, we would want to have a study done, just a good faith effort on our part that we're going to do all we can to maximize the resource that we have right now, which is that property. So to me, this rough layout would allow us to be able to say that we did our best in due diligence towards that goal.
And I think we owe that to our community to do the best for that school, for that school also.
Yep, property.
Property, yes.
So Jason, the word I could read, it's going to help the region potentially, which is why I think the borough should be involved.
Well, I think the public in general should be involved. So I would encourage, if people have opinions on the future of that building, whether it's local businesses or individuals, we don't have people come and give public comment for whatever reason. If you don't stand up and give public comment on your opinion of this, and then later you complain about it at Reed's, then this is the opportunity, unless you make some sort of other venue for that to happen. The next board meeting, I would say that it would be important that any interested parties that have interest in the future of that property and that building would attend and say something about that. I would argue, because we're not the 10 smartest people in the valley, sitting here. Other people may have other thoughts, and I would entertain that.
Absolutely, and that's also, so this is a plan to do a study to get.
But those studies, yeah.
But we can absolutely get the input as well.
Yes.
To us. But we'll have other smart people look at it. All right.
Very good, that concludes my report for that.
All right, moving into board action items. First thing we have is approval of bills and disbursements. Does anybody want anything handled separately before we make a motion? Motion, Mr. Enders, second, Mr. Eggleston. Any question or discussion? Secretary call the roll.
Mr. Diffenderfer?
Yay.
Mr. Eggleston?
Yes.
Mr. Enders?
Yes.
Mrs. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Mungold?
Yes.
Mr. Novinger?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Minnick?
Yes. Next, under personnel, we have 2 retirements. A motion to approve those retirements. Mr. Miller, second, Mr. Enders. Any question? Secretary call the roll.
Mr. Diffenderfer?
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston?
Yes.
Mr. Enders?
Yes.
Mrs. Gray? Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Mungold?
Yes.
Mr. Novinger?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Minnick?
Yes. We have a resignation from, as a NHS advisor for Ms. Dieter. Motion to approve. Mr. Miller, second. Mr. Eggleston, any question? Secretary call the roll.
Mr. Diffenderfer?
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston?
Yes.
Mr. Enders?
Yes.
Mrs. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Mungold?
Yes.
Mr. Novinger?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Minnick?
Yes. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 requests for leave. I have a motion to approve those. Mr. Eggleston, second. Mr. Enders. Any question? Secretary call the roll.
Mr. Diffenderfer?
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston?
Yes.
Mr. Enders?
Yes.
Mrs. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Mungold?
Yes.
Mr. Novinger?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Minnick?
Yes. Recommendation for employment, we have Bobby Hoover as pre-K teacher and Dusty Lapp as pre-K aide. Motion to approve. Mr. Eggleston, second. Mr. Diffendorfer. Any question? Secretary call the roll.
Mr. Diffenderfer?
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston?
Yes.
Mr. Enders?
Yes.
Mrs. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Mungold?
Yes.
Mr. Novinger?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Minnick?
Yes. We have a position reassignment. Sky Rank and Bree Smith be approved as child-specific aides. Motion to approve, Mr. Miller, second, Mr. Enders. Any question? Secretary call the roll.
Mr. Diffenderfer?
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston?
Yes.
Mr. Enders?
Yes.
Mrs. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Mungold?
Yes.
Mr. Novinger?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Minnick?
Yes. And we have 3 assignments here. Mr. Leiter as District Suicide Prevention Coordinator, Mr. Leiter as Acting High School Principal, and Mr. Schmeltz as the District Title IX Coordinator. Motion to approve. Mr. Miller, second. Mr. Eggleston. Question?
I would like just to add that Mrs. Smeltz did say if he wanted District Title IX Coordinator, he could have that one also, if he wanted all 3.
I have thoughts.
Mr. Leiter does not seem interested, so. Secretary call the roll.
Mr. Diffenderfer?
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston?
Yes.
Mr. Enders?
Yes.
Mrs. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Mungold?
Yes.
Mr. Novinger?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Minnick?
Yes. And we have 1 supplemental contract. Motion. Mr. Miller, second. Mr. Enders. Question? Secretary call the roll.
Mr. Diffenderfer?
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston?
Yes.
Mr. Enders?
Yes.
Mrs. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Mungold?
Yes.
Mr. Novinger?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Minnick?
Yes. Next, we have permission to attend the PASBA Leadership Conference. Do we have a motion? Mr. Enders, second. Mr. Diffendorfer. Secretary call the roll.
Mr. Diffenderfer?
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston?
Yes.
Mr. Enders?
Yes.
Mrs. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Mungold?
Yes.
Mr. Novinger?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Minnick?
Abstained. Next is approval to pay diversity occupation tuition and fee, and this did come out of the HR committee. Mr. Miller, second. Mr. Eggleston, any question? Secretary call the roll.
Mr. Diffenderfer?
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston?
Yes.
Mr. Enders?
Yes.
Mrs. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Mungold?
Yes.
Mr. Novinger?
No.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Minnick?
Yes. All right, under agreements, let's see. Well, let's do, I guess we should do the first one first. Let's do the Capital Area Task Force Protection Against Cybercrime. Is there a motion? Mr. Enders, is there a second? Mr. Diffendorfer. Questions, discussion? I know one of the questions that we had in committee was, recognizing that Carlisle School District, was a member of this group and had a cyber incident recently. We didn't know if there was any more information about that breach or how this service helped in that, didn't help in that, anything like that.
So Carlisle is a member of our footprint, but Carlisle wasn't a member of the CAPAC.
Okay.
So all of their information hasn't been disclosed yet. So we're still kind of waiting for that as well. From what we're hearing, word of mouth is more like a social engineering type of exploit that had taken place there, but we're still waiting to get that information ourselves.
Okay. And so they were not a member of this pack?
So along that lines, they weren't a member of CAPAC, but they also don't receive any of these services that Millersburg receives from the IU because they're not a member of our WAN.
Right.
They do their own thing,
Okay.
so.
Okay, they're completely separate. Good, thank you. Other questions? Secretary call the roll.
Mr. Diffendorfer?
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston?
Yes.
Mr. Enders?
Yes.
Mrs. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Mungold?
Yes.
Mr. Novinger?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Minnick?
Yes. The next thing we have, let's do the new story agreement. We have new story agreements for 2 students. A motion to approve. Mr. Eggleston, second. Mr. Enders. Any question? Secretary call the roll.
Mr. Diffendorfer?
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston?
Yes.
Mr. Enders?
Yes.
Mrs. Gray? Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Mungold?
Yes.
Mr. Novinger?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Minnick?
Yes. Next is a transportation agreement. There's several items under that agreement. Motion to approve. Mr. Eggleston, second. Mr. Enders, any question?
I do. There's a bunch of different ones in here. Did we again go back and try to see about getting one transportation and getting this one student that goes to Selinsgrove to Harrisburg? Did we find any information out about that from the last time I asked?
Yeah, so you okay if I speak to it? So the first 2 items there, you'll notice they say ESY, it's extended school year. These were supposed to be on the August agenda and we missed them. This already happened. And I can tell you moving forward, if you look down towards the bottom, you'll see that there's 2 students going to New Story Harrisburg. There is not one going to Selinsgrove anymore. So it is, for New Story, it's just those 2 going to Harrisburg.
Okay. What about the transportation to Middle Paxton?
That is
for
a
special ed?
CAIU placement. There
Okay.
are 3 students together on that
That's
transportation.
what I figured. I just wanted to.
Mhm.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
So in the disbursements, there was 16,000-ish that was noted as Selinsgrove. Would that have been from this, over the summer?
Was it a tuition? If it went to New Story?
No, Dawson, or Schlegel, it was
Oh, it was
transportation.
Schlegel?
Like, are they billing, what does that billing cycle typically look like? Like, is that from over the summer that we would have just cut
It
that?
should have been. Mrs. Horning, do you recall from Schlegel Transportation, the ones that did they just bill us for the ESY now to New Story?
Yeah.
Okay. I think that is what it is, but
So-
I can double check it for you if you want.
It was $10,000 for 4 days of transportation? Is that what I'm being told here?
No.
You sure? Because we had a disbursement that I think you're referring to the transportation company on September 1, number 49634, on page 129 of your report,
Okay.
is it $10,000 for 4 days of transportation?
No, it wouldn't be for 4 days.
I believe it's marked on there for 4 days.
What's the number again, Ron?
It's on page 129. And the number, a bunch of zeros, 49634.
Not the one I was
And I
actually
may
asking
very well
about.
be all wet about this, but I picked up on that, and I'm pretty sure the description
I'm
says 4
looking
days.
I'm looking at a different one, but. I was just curious because you mentioned the Selinsgrove thing, that we don't have anybody.
So I would say that is probably one line of the invoice that you're seeing out there. There are most likely multiple lines on that invoice. I see what you're looking at, the 4 days.
But you understand why I'm questioning?
Yes.
That it looks, the way
Yes.
that's presented is we
Yep.
paid $10,000 for 4 days of transportation for
Yep.
however many students.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and you can see there's regular transportation on the column to the left, regular transportation, 831, that would be our local transportation as well. So my point is, that's not the only thing on that was paid on that invoice.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Can you just for, confirm that or provide?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
I can email out
Yep.
what's on that one.
That'd be great. I think, I 100% agree with you, that's what it is, but just, yeah.
Yep.
Any other questions on this transportation?
Thank you.
Secretary call the roll.
I'm sorry, hold on just a second. Okay. Mr. Diffenderfer?
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston?
Yes.
Mr. Enders?
Yes.
Mrs. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Mungold?
Yes.
Mr. Novinger?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Minnick?
Yes. Next is an ESS agreement for special ed support. It's just kind of continuing the agreement that we have with Mrs. Trimmer. This did come out of HR committee. Motion to approve. Mr. Eggleston, second. Mr. Enders, any question? Secretary call the roll.
Mr. Diffenderfer?
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston?
Yes.
Mr. Enders?
Yes.
Mrs. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Mungold?
Yes.
Mr. Novinger?
No.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Minnick?
Yes. Next is the KNW additional services agreement that Dr. Bishop talked about. Motion to approve. Mr. Enders, second. Mr. Eggleston, any questions? Secretary call the roll.
Mr. Diffenderfer?
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston?
Yes.
Mr. Enders?
Yes.
Mrs. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Mungold?
Yes.
Mr. Novinger?
No.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Minnick? Yes. Next is the tuition benefit agreement. A motion to approve. This also came out of committee. Mr. Eggleston, second. Mr. Enders, question. Secretary call the roll.
Mr. Diffenderfer?
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston?
Yes.
Mr. Enders?
Yes.
Mrs. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Mungold?
Yes.
Mr. Novinger?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Minnick?
Yes. Next, we have approval for the two Crabtree Roarbaugh invoices.
So.
Mr. Miller, second. Mr. Enders, question. Secretary call the roll.
Mr. Diffenderfer?
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston?
Yes.
Mr. Enders?
Yes.
Mrs. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mrs. Mungold,
Yes.
Mr. Novinger,
Yes.
Mr. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Minnick.
Yes. Let's do the playground equipment, and I guess what I would be looking for would be a motion for either option 1 or option 2, correct?
I make a motion for the non-covered one.
I'll second that.
Okay, that's option 1. A motion and a second for option 1. Any discussion or question? Secretary, call the roll.
Mr. Diffenderfer,
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston,
Yes.
Mr. Enders,
Yes.
Mrs. Gray, Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mrs. Mungold,
Yes.
Mr. Novinger,
Yes.
Mr. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Minnick.
Yes. And if possible, I'd like to try and do 22-4-3 through 22-4-7, if everyone's agreeable.
I have a question on, I mean, we can make the motion. Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Miller, second. Mr. Eggleston, questions?
What size are we talking about for that National Guard banner? And what place is it taking?
This would be something as far as with Cody and the picture or the digital size for that.
Yeah.
I don't know that that was necessarily discussed yet. It was a matter of having the opportunity to post those banners.
The permission to put it there. I have no problem with I have no problem with it in theory. It's just, I don't want it displacing team banners and so on and so forth. Like, I would just be a little slightly concerned in those gyms. They're not the biggest gyms in the world, so.
Yeah, but I don't know, just pulling it up here, I don't think it's given the.
No, there's no dimensions on it.
Dimensions for it. That's something I can get back to, even if you want to table it tonight and bring it back in October, that's something we could do too. But I think it's a valid question.
Sure it won't displace anything that, we just gotta make sure we put it where it's not displacing any of our
I think that's the board's
ability.
opinion.
Yep.
Yeah. One other question about 22-407. What was the procedure that was going through for this request? And what is the procedure moving forward with other groups that would want to hang banners in the gyms or on district property?
So right now, the information went through Cody. Cody came to me asking as far as for permission to put it on a board agenda. I would foresee the future requests going the same direction. If we would get multiple requests to where we would start to limit, or we would have to have discussion about sizes or how many, I guess at this point, that would be something that we would look at in the future if we get multiple requests.
My thought is it would be something, my thought would be it would be something we'd have to make a policy about probably. So Tennille, you could put that on your list. Any other question?
Noted. I just have one question. Is the banner advertising the National Guard, or is it donated by the National Guard, but like promoting athletic teams for Millersburg?
It would be for
Like,
awareness
what-
in advertising, and Cody just walked in as we're talking, but.
Following along.
But no, to answer your question, Tennille.
We run fast.
It would be the National Guard's, in essence, showing support for the Indians, but also, you could look
It's
at it.
advertising.
For
It is.
advertising, yep.
You know, call it for what it is. It's promotional.
Yep.
It is, and I think that, you know, do you know the size of those banners, Cody?
4x8.
4x8 banners. I mean, that's a sizable banner in the gyms.
It's going to disappear in those walls.
So the thing I liked about them is I don't, again,
than-
I could be
bigger
missing
than
something,
teams.
but I don't think we have anything that in either of the gyms and at the soccer field that actually says, "Go Indians" with a nice logo on it. So that's why I like them. I wouldn't move any of the banners that are there. I'd find a new spot. I haven't picked out a spot yet for them. I think in the Manning gym, we could even put it just on the opposite side of where the teams sit, where the fans sit over there somewhere. The Johnson gym, I'd have to take a look. At the field, I just put it up on, I'd either put it on the press box underneath where the openings are, or I could put it on the fence. I liked it because I don't think we have anything that actually says Go Indians with a nice logo on it. That's what I liked about it.
Other questions, discussion? Secretary, call the roll.
Before I do, give me who made the motion and seconded it again.
So somehow I did.
You made the motion.
I now regret.
And
So
make
we,
the motions.
we're talking what are we talking about? 3 through 7?
Yes.
Do you want to do something different? Do we want to, after discussion, do we want to do something different?
I would like 7, separate.
Yeah, I would like 22-407, separate, please.
So can we have like a friendly amendment to your guys' motion?
Yes.
All right, so we're
So it's
doing.
going to 22.43 through 22.4.6.
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Miller, Mr. Enders. Okay, got it. Any other discussion? Okay. Mr. Diffenderfer?
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston?
Yes.
Mr. Enders?
Yes.
Mrs. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Mungold?
Yes.
Mr. Novinger?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Minnick?
Yes. So now let's do that 4.7, which is the approval to hang banners. Can I get a motion? Mr. Eggleston, second. Mr. Enders. Any additional discussion?
I think we should work out a policy before we approve anything, because that's a slippery slope, and you get local company X, Y, or Z do the same thing, you're gonna end up with you should have a policy first.
So do I hear a motion to table this until we get a policy?
I'd make that motion.
I'll second that.
Can I do that?
Well, there was a motion and second
Right.
on the item.
There was a motion and second on the item.
If they want to have a friendly amendment to table it, then we do that.
Okay.
Okay, so do we have to vote on the
You do have a
motion
policy,
and
it's just-
not pass it and then bring it back next month? Since we can't table it if it's already been motioned and seconded?
Well, if the folks making the motion are willing to change it to a table, we can do that. But we do have a policy that's rather old and needs to be updated.
Which says what?
What does the policy say?
It's supposed to be about this, but it actually doesn't talk about it because it's too old. But it does say that it can happen, it's just not supposed to be advertising for certain organizations. But the updated policies, which have come out since 2022, is rather extensive and puts in a lot more guidelines.
So right now, we have a motion to approve or disapprove that was made by,
Mr. Eggleston, seconded by Mr. Enders.
would you guys be okay with tabling this until we can get our motion updated? Mr. Enders?
Whatever. I support the military, so
But you're okay with your motion, we'll change it for now.
sure, yeah.
All right,
Okay.
so we have a motion and a second to table for now.
Got it.
Other discussion? Secretary, call the roll.
Mr. Diffenderfer?
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston?
Yes.
Mr. Enders?
No.
Mrs. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Mungold?
Yes.
Mr. Novinger?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Minnick?
Yes. Could you send that revised language? Next two items, I'm okay with putting together. If you guys are, that would be the junior high girls volleyball and varsity boys volleyball. Mr. Eggleston, second. Mr. Enders, any discussion? Secretary, call the roll.
Mr. Diffenderfer?
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston?
Yes.
Mr. Enders?
Yes.
Mrs. Gray? Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Mungold?
Yes.
Mr. Novinger?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Minnick?
Yes. The next item, I would propose that we do 23.1 through 23.6, which are the PSBA officer elections.
So moved.
Mr. Miller, second. Mr. Eggleston, discussion. Secretary, call the roll.
Mr. Diffenderfer,
Yes.
Mr. Eggleston,
Yes.
Mr. Enders,
Yes.
Mrs. Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mrs. Mungold,
Yes.
Mr. Novinger,
Yes.
Mr. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Minnick.
Yes. Board sharing.
I'd like to thank the administration, the teachers that were all here present for all the back-to-school night that they put together for all the parents and kids that came back. I appreciate it, and so does the community. Thank you, guys.
Absolutely.
Other board members sharing?
So I'd like to recognize Mr. Book and the soccer team. So prior to school starting, we had 2 custodians, ladies actually, mulching the playground over at Lankerville. And Mr. Book saw that and he volunteered the team to come over for team building and to do that work. So just want to recognize him for that and sewing into those kids' character and community. So appreciate that him and the team.
Definitely.
Any other sharing?
I just would like to echo that both elementary school and the middle and high school back-to-school nights were very well attended, put together. The teachers were wonderful. Mrs. Schmeltz did a great job standing in for Mr. Shover, who was not able to be in attendance, so she handled the high school and the middle school part of it. The PTO was there, recruiting members, handing out prizes. They had the food services were there, handing out samples, and I think overall that was just a really good event for parents and students alike to get to see what happens, a little taste of their child's school day. So that was all I have.
Okay. Mr. Miller.
Just recognizing September as Suicide Prevention Month. We know that that's touched some of us individually and us as a district. And just wanted to mention that we have resources of the emergency number 988 for anybody. Care Solace is a resource that we have here in the district and in our area, whether you're a student or somebody troubled with PTSD or any trauma in their lives, from youth to veterans, that, you know, the statistics are amazing and terribly amazing, the number of people that struggle that way. So just September, wear your purple and keep people that are struggling in mind.
Thank you. Other board members sharing? All right, I got a couple things. I did get to go through the middle school on back to school night, and the painting does look wonderful, so definitely thank him for that work. It looks great. It does make a huge difference. I think it's a great start to the school year. Everything we've heard about so far, from food services through the different buildings, through everything sounds like we're off to the right foot, which is awesome. Did get to both back to school nights, and again, well attended, and just great to see all of the people and the teachers. I think we were a little worried about how the band was going to go this year for marching band. I think it's going really well so far. The soccer team seems to have really latched onto it, which is pretty cool. They seem to enjoy a large vocal fan section, so that's kind of neat. So that taken a not great situation and made it a good situation, I think. So that's awesome. Let's see. Talk about that. Yeah. So up there, everybody who's kept the lights on at the soccer field, that's great. From was it Home Light that provided the generator to the folks who were up there working on it, to Mr. Miller for coming up with the idea. I think it's worked out really well, and it's allowed us to continue to have our fall sports, so that's great. And that's all I have, so I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So.
Thank you. Oh, and there's snacks.
Yes.